The 13-year royal exile has ended. Diplomatic missions have failed, and the Pandavas have issued a final, unavoidable ultimatum: restore their rightful half of the kingdom or face total war. Sanjaya, the royal emissary, returns to the Kuru court to deliver a devastating public rebuke. He accuses King Dhritarashtra of systemic unrighteousness, warning that yielding to greed will result in the total annihilation of his dynasty. Sanjaya withholds the specific terms of the ultimatum until the morning assembly, forcing the king to confront his moral vacuum in isolation. This fear of imminent collapse triggers an acute psychological crisis: absolute insomnia. Within the Udyoga Parva, this diagnostic subsection is known as the Projagara Parva, the subbook of sleeplessness. Ancient palm leaf manuscripts preserve this discourse, establishing the historical and textual authority for what follows as a rigorous ethical treatise. Vidura identifies this crippling sleeplessness as a direct somatic manifestation of hidden unrighteousness and severe, unchecked cognitive dissonance. The king's inability to sleep reveals a vacuum in his moral leadership, transforming a personal symptom into a state crisis. Dhritarashtra summons his chief minister, Vidura. In the narrative tradition, Vidura is the human incarnation of Dharma, the deity of righteousness and cosmic justice. As a Dasiputra, or son of a maidservant, Vidura's social status prevents him from ever holding the throne. This positions him as a detached counselor who can speak unpleasant truths to power without the burden of personal ambition. The king summons Vidura in the middle of the night, seeking a psychological anesthetic to dull his anxiety. Vidura instead delivers an uncompromised lecture on Rajadharma, the universal laws of ethical imperial governance. He defines administrative leadership and political sovereignty as direct derivatives of somatic and cognitive self-mastery. To dismantle the king's psychological defenses, Vidura introduces a diagnostic framework of failure, the Ṣaḍdoṣa, or 6 defects. Vidura intends to prove that a leader who cannot govern their own cognitive bandwidth and temporal agency is incapable of governing a polity. The foundational verse identifies the 6 defects that must be discarded to attain prosperity. Ṣaḍdoṣa purusheneha hatavya bhutim ichata. The mandate hatavya dictates that these must be discarded or destroyed to secure bhuti, defined as prosperity and success. The first domain consists of Nidrā, excessive sleep, and Tandrā, lethargy. In the context of Rajadharma, these somatic failures represent a dampening of sovereign vigilance that proves fatal to leadership. This state relates to pramada, or negligence, which the text defines as the literal illusion of death within awareness. We can categorize these 6 ancient defects into 3 tiers of executive failure. The base layer is somatic disengagement. Somatic disengagement is the baseline of leadership failure. A leader who lacks awareness of the present cannot plan for the prosperity of the future. The second tier of failure moves from the body to the emotions, affective volatility. Bhaya, or fear, paralyzes executive decision-making. Dhritarashtra exemplifies this, as his fear of his son Duryodhana consistently overrides his intellectual understanding of justice. Krodha, or anger, is the destructive force that breaks administrative bonds and erodes institutional trust. The Bhagavad Gita corroborates this, identifying anger as one of the 3 doors to hell that lead to the destruction of the self. Modern psychological findings connect high levels of emotion regulation directly to leadership effectiveness. When moral words are followed by angry conduct, the resulting leader hypocrisy increases internal friction and suppresses constructive institutional voice. When emotion hijacks the leader's office, the institutional framework of trust begins to incinerate like raw leather over an open fire. The final domain of failure identifies the apex of the hierarchy, Ālasya, or laziness, and Dīrghasūtratā, procrastination. Dhritarashtra translates literally as spinning a long yarn. It describes the chronic inability to close decision loops. Procrastination acts as the active elongation of a decision thread, creating a state of permanent administrative drift. Dhritarashtra exemplifies this by procrastinating on restraining his son, substituting decisive action with endless circular deliberation. A leader's reliance on confirmation bias and sycophancy serves as a pathological way to avoid the executive effort required by dharma. Executive paralysis is the final stage of failure. Here, intellectual knowledge of the right path is discarded for the comfort of inaction. As the morning light signals the start of the final assembly, the Dora's nighttime council concludes. The king admits the truth, yet confesses he utterly lacks the agency to act upon it. He retreats into fatalism, blaming destiny, Daiva, for the moral catastrophe he has enabled through his own defects. The Vidura Nīti provides a precise diagnostic tool for evaluating leadership through the lens of executive function. This ancient categorization of somatic disengagement, emotional volatility, and chronic procrastination aligns with modern research connecting leader hypocrisy to the erosion of institutional trust. Dhritarashtra's intellectual clarity is useless. He understands his ruin, but lacks the agency to stop his world from collapsing into the Kurukshetra war. The failure to govern internal enemies like sleep, fear, and procrastination ensures that even the most powerful empire will collapse under the weight of its leader's cognitive dissonance.